Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Sheets, and I have Kenny with me. And for those of you that didn't know, Bobby's kind of off for like a little bit, so it's kind of like, the parents are leaving the kids in charge of the house, so he's hopefully we don't make too big of a mess of things before he comes back. So we're having all kinds of kind of like DFS parties and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and then hopefully like at the end, like when he comes back, it'll be like the end of Risky Business where we have to like clean up the whole place, and then just like literally jump on the couch before he comes back. Oh, what's going on, Bobby? No, everything's cool. Everything's like the same, and hopefully we don't get into too much trouble. Like Adam and I have been doing these noon shows, and basically just been like going all hyper saber sim stuff like the whole time, and not really talking about the games too much. But we have been, I guess, just in our own way. But hey, it's working. I won the freaking lotto in FanDuel last night.
Oh wow, nice! I didn't even see that. Congrats.
Yeah, and I actually had an actual real life baseball take that actually worked out. So that's fun too. So
Awesome.
All right. So what do we got? So we have we have the Rocket Mortgage. Why don't you give your opinion of the tournament in general, and then we'll just gotta go through the tiers again.
Yeah. So I mean, I like the full field events. It's always kind of weird with the signature events or these like semi-cut, like the Arnold Palmer and stuff, where it's like these semi-cut events and stuff like that. So and majors are always fun, but majors are also heavily weighted at the top. So I think it's a fun week to kind of get back into a little bit more of the game theory side of things, just because Scotty and Rory aren't here. I mean, so are a number of the other guys at the top. And really, I think the field's kind of wide open. It's an easier golf course, full field event with guys coming in from the Corn Ferry Tour and stuff like that. So, there's sure to be a couple of, no names at the top of the leaderboard, at least before the weekend at some point. So kind of interesting to get into more of a less takey game theory kind of play this week.
Yeah, so talk about that a little bit. So I mean, I hear that Rocket Mortgage. I mean, it's always has a really, really good DFS score. I mean, people go 25 under or whatever the hell it is.
Right.
So I guess the idea is that, so you look at it two ways. Is that if it's an easier course, meaning that it's easier to get birdies. I guess the idea is that a lesser player has a better chance of getting birdies relative to a better player on this course, because it's less likely that they're going to get into trouble relative to like the U.S. Open. I guess that's the idea, right?
Right. And also I think if you look at the top, there's three guys in the 10K range, one of which is only really a superstar. I mean, he's Colin's the only major winner, right? And then until we get to Hideki. But I think with the, even the guys at the top too, I think there's less motivation for them. They've been playing a lot recently in bigger events. Also some of these guys are just in because of commitments, and it's not like it's a smaller purse this week and stuff like that too. And so I think the course being easier levels the playing field for some of the guys down below, but also those guys still, I think, relative to the top of the field, have a lot more motivation, especially because as we get into the end of the season, FedEx Cup points are on people's mind now. Also guys in the middle, we're this whole, after last week and Tommy losing to Keegan, and now all week the talk has been about Keegan and being a playing captain for the Ryder Cup, but there's still a number of other guys in contention for being picked at the Ryder Cup, that are in the field this week. So I think that there's some motivational narrative where it brings the middle half of the field more into play than it does on a typical week.
Not only that, but I mean, listen, with Scotty and Rory and all these, the top guys out, like these are tournaments that, throw a name out there that like Max Greiserman, could win. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or like
Absolutely.
or just call whatever name you want, and then they don't get too many of those, and they're getting a course that they can fire at the pin,
Yep.
So what does that mean? I'm not good enough to remember like what optimals and whatever won this type of event before. I would like to think that I don't know who won last year or how it worked out last year, but I would imagine that the optimal lineup, if there is such a thing, probably left like zillions on the table or something. Or I can't even imagine.
Yeah, most like so. Last year, Cam Davis won.
There you go.
And then Minwoo Lee and Akshay tied for second with David Thompson. So three tied at second, then Cam Young, then Rico Hui and Eric Van Rooyen. Yeah, so it was not like, it was not a stud that was even in the top 5 last year.
So we should do like our own like kind of a Rick Rungood model here. So like if we had a computer, right, that could say, okay, what type of golfer would you kind of want, like all else being equal, so I'm going to go for my projections, for the most part, but listen, if I want to overweight stuff or what are the types of guys you're looking for? Are you looking for guys that like just that hit the ball really far? Or are you looking for guys that, that are more accurate? Are you looking for like younger guys or older guys or anything like that?
Yeah. So it's going to be, because the course is easier and there's also, it's much less penal off the tee, so missing fairways isn't really that big a deal because the rough isn't crazy. It's nothing like we've been seeing the past couple of weeks anyway. So guys that can hit it further are going to have an advantage just because of shorter approach shots in, and then also putting is like one of the biggest things for this course this week. So guys that can hit it far and then have a good shot at hitting the green and putt well are kind of what you're looking for.
Okay, so with that said, so here are the themes going into this: that there's going to be a lot of variance, that anybody can win. That you want guys that can hit it far. Well, let's now with that said, let's go through the ranges and see if we like anything here. So I guess I'll start. So the first range is like only 3 guys, right? So Morikawa, Bradley, and Cantlay, and I mean they're all going to project pretty well. You'd like to think that Bradley would be kind of like let downy, and you'd also like to believe that Cantlay would not necessarily, be that guy, to hit it really far, to be particularly motivated, all that stuff. So you'd think that Morikawa, I guess, but doesn't have too much distance relative to the field either. So I wouldn't mind if I ended up with none of these guys. But they're all going to project like near the top. So what are your thoughts there?
So I think that's going to be a common thought as well this week. So, because it's easy to, when we have something where everyone's aware that it could be some no name that wins the tournament.
True.
A lot of people are going to be like, okay, we'll just skip the 10K guys. Now there's still value there. There's still the best golfers in the field.
Yeah.
For me personally, out of the 3, I wouldn't mind completely skipping Colin just because he's not been in good shape for himself lately. And as you mentioned, he's not long off the tee, and he's also not actually been putting very well, which is the other kind of key metric I'd be looking at this week. And as the most expensive guy with, pretty high ownership projected, I'd be totally fine skipping him. But I wouldn't want to skip all 3 overall, just because I think that, that'll be a common build, especially in the lottos. So for me, I think the narrative would be, to go for Keegan just because he's, lowest projected in the range. And also because, he won last week and it's huge, but also if he wins this week, then he makes the Ryder Cup team by points, and he's aware of that. You know what I mean? And he's like, he's not going to go play sloppily. Like, he cares, you know what I mean? So I'd probably target him the most. Cantlay, historically is the better golfer between him and Keegan, but I think, I don't know. I don't know where the motivation is for him as much, but I think, it'll be probably pretty common for people to skip all 3 of them, but then it's going to put a lot more ownership on Ben Griffin, who's just been playing great and, at the top of the next range. So it's kind of interesting how the top of this all works out.
You hit it right on the head, and as I was getting into this 9K range, because sometimes when those slate locks, I put a couple of things up on Twitter and on our site. Number one is I compare my ownership to what actually came out to see where I was bad and where the industry was bad or whatever. And the other thing I like to put out is the difference between ownership between like the lottery and the big buy-in, just to see if there's any discrepancy. I'm going to tell you something. Ben Griffin is going to just get completely crammed in big buy-ins. Okay, like he is going to be. I think he's going to be almost 40% in big buy-ins, and I think he's going to be pretty well freaking owned in the lotto too, because like you said, he's been, first of all, he's probably been playing the best of anybody in the field.
Okay? That's a fact
for openers, right? And not to mention, like you said, it's pretty easy to make a case to get rid of the 10Ks. And he's sitting there, and even though he's only 200 less, they're like, well, he's not in the 10K range. He's 9,800. So all of those are going to lead to the fact that this 24% ownership projection by me is a freaking joke. Okay.
Right.
So, like you said, maybe if you really wanted to get funky, you'll play these 10K guys and not play the Ben Griffin. He certainly projects the best. The next guy that I would go to, and this would be a pretty cool way to play, because I think Cameron Young makes sense. You know what I mean? Bombs the ball. He's in the range. Whatever.
Great putter.
But what about the withdrawn Siwoo Kim, like from last week? Like, yeah, exactly. Right. You know what I mean? Exactly my kind of guy. Right. I just completely destroyed my life last week. I had like a couple of really good lineups and like big buy-ins all with him. And they had to tease me by telling me they were in the money, like going into the last day, like even though they had no chance to win or do anything. Yeah. So I have Siwoo Kim at like a 12% projected ownership at 9K. So the logical plays, again, if you want to look at it this way, I think are Ben Griffin and Cameron Young. Siwoo Kim would be my kind of hoodoo play. Where are you with these guys? And remember, we only got 6-7 guys to talk about.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm right with you. I mean, Ben Griffin, I think he's the chalk that you can't deny this week. He has just been playing so well.
Yep.
The field is much weaker. He has a history here, and even though he's, I guess the last 2 years like top 30 something, but he's obviously a much better golfer today than he was the last couple of years. So it's going to be really hard to avoid him. I think, maybe you go Griffin and Keegan or something like that to get different, just because Keegan will be the least of the 10Ks and Griffin will probably be super high. You know what I mean?
Right.
But, I don't know how the question really is, how is this? And I believe you, like in the high buy-ins and the single entries and stuff like that, I wouldn't be surprised if Ben Griffin was approaching 40%. But
not in the lottery. You think he's going to be tame enough? He'll be in the 20s, probably.
No, he'll probably. I still imagine he'll be over 30.
Okay.
But how does that? Where does the rest of the salary fill in? Is my question. Do people then go heavier on the lower, 9Ks and high 8K range, or what are they doing? Like, how is that going to fill out in terms of distribution?
The other thing though is that. And I talk about this a lot, is that it's not, when you're building lineups, it's not the players necessarily, but it's the lineup. So if you can play like all the Ben Griffin you want, okay, provided that you don't fill it with other chalk, which we'll get to. Okay.
Right.
So I got no problem with you saying, you know what, Ben Griffin is just good chalk. I'm playing it. And I'm just not going to put him with 5 other bits of chalk. And we'll get to one example in a second. What about, because I know that if Bobby were here, he'd bring up 2 guys. So he'd probably bring up Hideki and he would bring up Luke Clanton. Hideki to me is like exactly the type of guy you're supposed to fade in this. He had literally no motivation. He's like, he's just like, you know what I mean? Like it's totally not his tournament. Like come to Detroit. You know what I mean? Like, are you kidding me?
I totally agree there. And Hideki, I mean, it seems like a lot of people, I've listened to a few other podcasts on golf this week and stuff like that, and there's a great argument. And Bobby's kind of core, at least anytime I've done a golf show with him, is you play the best overall golfers, and Hideki is definitely the best overall golfer outside of maybe Morikawa here.
Mm-hmm.
But for those reasons, exactly like you're saying, like he doesn't have motivation. He's also not long off the tee. He's not a great putter. I mean, he's great scrambler. He's great with his approach, but those things aren't going to give him as much of an edge this week. And the ownership, I think, reflects that, but it's not, I don't think, a reason to launch on it just because he's low owned projected. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. Okay, 8Ks, I will start as kind of like to finish off the sentence I was bringing up before. So if you are going to play Ben Griffin and his ownership will be pretty high and even higher big buy-ins, I think that you don't really want to play him with Davis Thompson in lottos, okay? Because Davis Thompson, he looks great. I mean, like he's modeling great, model darling, especially in this tournament, whatever it is. You told me that he was actually in the money in this last year as well.
Yeah, he tied for second last year.
Which doesn't help the ownership. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So he certainly rates like the best of the 8Ks, and then I will throw in the other guy who I think I am under projected as far as ownership goes. I would think that people would want to play Akshay in a tournament like this, not because he's long or anything like that, but just because, again, like, I don't know, like in a tournament without like great players, I just think that people would want to play. I mean, I kind of want to play him, and he's looking like only 13%. This doesn't seem right. So
right.
You do see other guys that people like to play. Keith Mitchell. Do people like to play him, or they like to just play him in the first round? That's the question. Okay.
I think people like to play him. I mean, he's kind of known recently as the first round guy, but I think this week he's a good all around golfer, and I think that he'll get. I mean, he's also long off the tee.
Yeah.
And he's been playing decently. He's got a couple top tens this season. So I think that people will play him this week.
Who do you like? Who do you like here in this range?
So I do like Akshay as well. For me, the ownership on Davis Thompson I'm going to just totally fade. I think. I mean, I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense for him to be projected so high. Like early in the week, he was projected like 39% by SaberSim or something like that.
I saw that.
It was like, I was like, what are they thinking? Like, and if that's the case, this is an easy chalk for me to just spit out. And he's not been in great form. He's been, he's been cut 3 out of the last 5 tournaments he played. You know what I mean? I don't care that he T2'd last year here. So did Akshay. So that's an easy fade and pivot for me. I also like Rasmus in this range, also super long off the tee, also been playing great. I mean, I guess not great, but he's been playing well in much more competitive events. And in a weaker field, I think he has a real good chance to shine. And I love that he's also, it looks like most people are going to kind of be off of him. So I really like Rasmus in the 8K range. And then, I like some Keith Mitchell, but I also am going to have some exposure to Ricky Fowler.
Ooh, okay.
Who I believe is in the field on a sponsors exemption, which I like.
What does that mean? That means that
he's sponsored by Rocket Mortgage.
But so otherwise he wouldn't have been playing, you mean?
I believe that's why he's in the field, because all of these tournaments, like Rocket Mortgage gets to invite a number of golfers that they sponsor that, they want to play their event because they want TV time. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I'm not sure that that's true, but I know that he is sponsored by Rocket Mortgage. So I know that he'll, kind of be on camera and stuff like that. And he's also been playing well this season. And I think he's kind of like he's a great, like, historical golfer. If you go from a Bobby's theory perspective, in this range, historically, he's had the best career. You know what I mean? So, why not? Especially when he's been playing well this season. And coming out as a sponsor, and he's won this tournament before. I think he won it at least once. I think maybe twice. But so I like Ricky Fowler as well. I'm
gonna throw one name out for you again that sort of may fit the profile, and then I'm gonna get to my kind of like who do play. I just noticed Minwoo Lee here. I know he hits it far, and he's sub 10%. Any comment on that?
I just think he's been in really, really bad form. Okay. I don't think his putting's together. He's got the distance, and he's not going to be penalized for his lack of accuracy off the tee. but he doesn't have an edge with the distance because his short game and approach game has just been trash. And it's fine if you're hitting all your approaches from shorter, but if you're still not hitting the greens, then you're still going to have a problem. You know what I mean? So, and he's historically also not just good with the putter, which is like one of the main metrics for this course.
I'd also like to add that this guy's been playing much better. He's playing well, and they give him a big bump in price. So maybe people be off of him is Matt Fitzpatrick. He's been doing much better, and he's 8,400 in this field. But the guy that I want to highlight again, I'm just trying to identify guys that are like, I have them projected okay. Maybe you're not that owned, that like you just step back, you're like, really? You know what I mean? So all the guys we mentioned make just perfect sense. I love it. I love all of it. Okay. But I'm just going to throw one guy in there that I'm going to put in this kind of like this. This is going to be kind of like a shell mixture of chalk and like off the board. I'm going to throw in Chris Gotterup. I don't know much fundamentally about why he's showing up, except that he is for me. And so like with all these other guys being probably better plays, honestly. But the fact that he's projecting okay, not highly owned or whatever, I'm going to include Gotterup in my kind of like hoodoo list, like the Siwoo Kim in the 9K range, which makes people want to throw up, So that's what I'm going to just kind of throw in over there.
Yeah, I like that play. I mean, he's solid throughout the bag. He loses a little bit with the putter, but I mean, he's great off the tee. He's got decent approach and around the green game, and he's been playing well too. I mean, he missed one cut, but he's got a bunch of T13, T15, T12s this season. So yeah, I don't mind that play at all.
So 7,500 to 7,900. I'm not seeing anybody at particularly high ownership. Like there are guys that are getting played, but you don't have that one guy that's getting 15% as far as I'm looking. So there's a whole bunch of guys around the 10% mark. So it's going to be kind of like
I do see one guy projected at 15% by Rick.
Who do you think?
Steven Yeager.
Steven Yeager. Okay. All right. I have him a little less. So again, I'm just trying to pick the lowest owned of these guys, or maybe you can help me with the more of a course fit or something like that. Because the guys that are showing up for me as the top are Ryan Gerard, who I seem to play every freaking week, and Benny On. Like those are the top two, and then I know that what's his name that Bobby would want me to play Alex Noren and then there's Michael Kim, who is supposed to. Michael Kim, I'm just throwing names out because he was like on the verge of being like a model darling like a few weeks ago, and then people just kind of
he went through an injury.
He
went through an injury and then had trouble recovering. He's like super vocal on Twitter, so you can go follow him kind of day to day and see.
Who, Michael Kim?
Yeah.
Well, so let's start with you. So who do you like over here?
So I like, the interesting thing about Ryan Gerard is that on the, I was looking at earlier, the pay dirt tools.
Okay.
So on the range of outcomes or the range of outcomes tool, if you sort by the 10x% or whatever,
okay,
for PGA this week, Ryan Gerard at 7,900 shows up fourth.
Wow.
After the top 3 10K guys. So
wow, that's pretty funny.
I thought that was interesting. I don't particularly like him this week just because I don't, he's been showing up for me a lot lately too. I've been playing him a lot and he's just been kind of lackluster. Maybe he'll pop a little more this week just because it's a weaker field, but I don't know. I mean, he's not going to be a core focus for me. I do, in terms of like, who I think looks, models well for the course potentially would be Thorbjorn Olsen.
Ooh, okay.
Hits it far off the tee. Hits it, averages 307, which isn't the furthest, but far enough. Has it, gains throughout the bag and gains pretty heavily on putting as well. And I think because he missed the cut at the last tournament he played was the U.S. Open, he missed the cut. Nope, that doesn't bother me at all. And he's like basically projected to not be owned. So I really like that play for this range. I also do, I do like the Jaeger play, even though I see he's predicted a little bit higher owned elsewhere. But, another guy that's far off the tee and has a solid game throughout the bag. I like your play with Benny on as well, although he's kind of, seems like every time he gets cut is the time I'm on him, and then I'm off him when he T5s. Other than that, for me, the only guy that I kind of am thinking about is Chris Kirk, because he's got solid history here. He's played it. He basically plays it every year. He's kind of just an all around the bag golfer. He's not super long off the tee, but you don't have to be here necessarily. There's other ways you can win it. His approach game is great. His putting game is great. He's solid all around. And also, I kind of wonder this week, I've heard a lot of talk, and I know, I actually have Bobby and I both have a number of friends in common from Detroit, and it's supposed to be super hot there this week. And when I just think about Chris Kirk, every time he's won a golf tournament, he was like sweating his ass off. So I kind of feel like he's a good hot weather golfer. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's, I would take that with a grain of salt, but this morning when I was kind of redoing my research and going through updated sims and stuff like that, I was like, yeah, I think I need to get some Chris Kirk into the mix. So that's what I'll be doing.
All right, 70, the lower 7Ks. I have two guys that are showing up for me, and one of them doesn't feel like the course, but I don't know. So I'll just get your opinion on my top two guys, then you can go to yours. So the top two guys I've ranked are Ryo Hitsusuni and Emiliano Grillo. What do you think of either of those two guys, and what else do you have?
Those are my same two favorites. Same two favorites. Actually, my first build on Monday, those were the first two names I clicked.
Wow.
Just off the bat, you know what I mean, without seeing anything. Love both of them. Grillo, I think, he's been, in great form. Another solid around, throughout the bag guy. I think he has an edge this week just because of it. And he's, against a weaker field. I love him at 7,400. And Hitsatsune, I love as well. Like he's, especially in this type of tournament with this week of field, he's likely, in my opinion, to be in the optimal lineup. Like I was talking to Bobby about this, like already this year, he's been in like 3 or 4 optimal lineups for like these full field events. So it's, he's got the game to be, in the top 10. Actually he was last year when I won the mini max, which was the first tournament I actually ever got a first on. He was in my lineup there, so I've always got my eye on him.
So I'm gonna do the Bobby thing here. I'm gonna say, listen, I'm playing Jake Knapp. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody does. I don't care. I'm playing Jake Knapp. So I'm gonna throw in the Bobby Jake Knapp call because I know it's coming.
I like the Jake Knapp call. He's also, he's a bomber. Yeah. He's, I think this is a good week for him. I also, look, Cam Davis has been playing terribly, but he won it twice here. So there's something about this, he's done great at this course. If there's a week that he's going to do well, it's going to be this week. And I know that he's, projected to be a little bit higher than I'd like him to be, but, I still think you got to have a little bit of exposure to, last year's winner and a multiple time winner at this course. And then also for me, where'd it go? The other one I like in this range is Jesper Svensson.
Oh, okay. All right. That's
another guy. He's actually like one of the best putters, and he's also one of the longest hitters. So if you're going on those metrics, he's got them both in spades, and he's also like his worst stats are his accuracy in fairways. So those are kind of negated this week. So he's going to have a much better chance at a good performance than I think he does on a typical week. And he's been playing okay. You know what I mean?
What do you got under 6K? I mean, I asked him. I mean, no one's going to be more than 5%. I mean, I'll just say the name I have that top projected is kind of the boring Henrik Norlander. Only boring because like it's kind of obvious. You know what I mean? People played him before; they know who he is. So I have him. So I'll give you and then Sammy Valinaki. So I'll give you two guys I literally have never heard of. That are my next top two projected guys, and you can just tell me if you've ever heard of them and tell me if you like them or whatever. Or talk about other guys in the 7K. One guy is Steven Fisk, and the other one is of course Quade Cummins. So you ever heard of any of these guys? And who else you got?
I have heard of them. I've seen them before, and I like both of them. Steven Fisk's probably my favorite in the sub 7K range.
Oh, really? Okay.
And Quade Cummins was one of the in my first pass was one of the salary saver guys that I came up with. I was like, oh, this guy looks like he models out well. Wow. So I like both of those. I think I think that those are keen picks.
Okay.
I think it makes sense with the Norlander, another guy that's just got a lot of experience. Also played here a bunch, even though not the greatest results, but one of those longer history form kind of guy plays. For me, also, who do I have down here? There was one.
How about a little context? So first, go ahead. What were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
I was gonna throw out. There's one super odd 6K flat guy if you're looking to get really weird.
There you go.
Anders Albertson, who I have never heard of before, but
you gotta like that.
Just Corn Ferry Tour player. Nothing stellar out of him, but if you're really looking to dig deep in the lotto, him and then also Norman Xiong at 6,300, who actually looks like his stats do really well. The problem is he's withdrawn for the past couple of tournaments, which makes me think that he maybe went through some injury or something like that. But hey, if he's playing this week and feeling good, that's a long shot. But
well, a little context before we get into kind of like a summary of all this. So what? Again, I don't do these with you too often. I think I know, but why don't you tell everybody else so that they know where you're coming from? Like, what types of things do you usually play? You mentioned that you played and won the mini max. Do you usually play like the kind of a combination of single entry and the mini max, or what are you usually playing nowadays?
Yeah, it just kind of depends on the field size, and whatever my bankroll is week to week. So,
I only mention it though because when we say, "Oh, I like this guy," is that like guys you might like in a cash lineup or okay.
Yeah, so this week I'm playing a little bit of the lottery. I'm playing a couple of single entries, and then I'm playing the the $3 20 max or whatever.
Okay.
So not a ton, but still like 75 lineups or something like that. You know what I mean? So
yep.
Especially like in the the $5 lotto where I have a decent amount of lineups in. I'll just be looking to get super different, especially if I'm starting stacks with like I mentioned at the top of the show with Keegan, Ben Griffin, or something like that. You know what I mean?
All right, so let's do in Bobby's honor, we'll do the same the same kind of summary thing that we always do. So we're gonna talk about each range and talk about who our best plays are, whatever, with specific parameters. So the first thing is I'm just gonna say very simply, who do you think is going to win the tournament? And that's your only prompt. I'm not saying you can factor in ownership or whatever. You could take that however you want.
Yeah, I guess I'll say Ben Griffin.
Yep, that's sounds good. And I will thus go with Colin Morikawa. Who do you have in the top in under 10K that's going to get top 5?
I'm going to go with Ricky Fowler.
Hold on a minute. Ricky Fowler. Okay. One second. 11A. Hold on. You know what? I should cheat. I am going to cheat. How good am I? I'm going to go with Ben Griffin. How about that? Very good. All right. Under 9K to come in the top 10.
I'm gonna go with Rasmus Højgaard.
Okay. I am going to go with Akshay Bhatia.
Ooh, I like that.
Under 8K to come top 20.
We'll say Steven Yeager.
And I will go with Benyan. Under 7K to make the cut.
Under 7K to make the cut. I'll go with Steven Fisk.
And I will go with the Henrik Norlander. Now, what about a guy over 9K to miss the cut?
Over 9K to miss the cut. I'm going to say Hideki.
Yep, that is probably the correct answer. I will go with. See, I hate to pick guys that are really motivated to not make the cut. I mean, to make the cut. But I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to go Luke Clanton to miss the cut. I mean, the amateurs has turned pro, like the last thing.
Yeah.
But
sure.
but that's what I'm going to go with anyway. So okay. So we got a good cut event. So maybe Friday we'll check out Discord, see if anything's the cut sweat stuff. I never really got into it though. It sounds like something you really want to sweat, but maybe just I'm never like that live. That doesn't really bother me that much.
Well, and at the end of the day, you still got 2 more days after the cut. Exactly. Okay, well that's great. I don't know how many times I've had 6 of 6s and looking great, and then it's like, oh, I lost money for the week. You know what I mean?
And now again, this is sandbagging you with this question, but any initial like weather stuff or for tomorrow, for waves, for showdown, or nothing yet?
I don't think that there's anything like that. It's just heat,
Okay.
And they're all going to have to deal with the heat of the day over the course of 2 days. You know what I mean? So there's no, I don't think wind or rain or anything like that's going to be a problem. It's just a matter of who can get out there and sweat it up.
By the way, I'm sorry, Bobby, to your Fleetwood guy. Just can't win, man.
Oh my God, so terrible.
Just can't win. I don't know what to say. And I'll tell you what. I mean, not that this is relevant or whatever, but boy, what a freaking statement for freaking Ryder Cup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bradley's like, okay, no problem. This is how it's done.
Did you see too? There was a clip of Fleetwood off on the green from behind, and when Keegan went to go take the putt, he didn't watch him. He went like this, and then as soon as the crowd cheered, he looked up. He was just like, he didn't even watch it.
And the other ultra terrible take that I have is that when people say, "Oh my God, Tommy Fleetwood's his press conference, he was so classy." I believe everybody sounds more classy with a British accent. So I don't.
That's true.
That's my. Everybody's and yeah. So all right, I'm gonna run. Good luck, everybody, and I'll see you guys at the top of the leaderboard.
All right. Good luck.
All right, later.
Cheers.
Hello.